I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is Aphrodisiac food expert, and of course, the author of Aphrodisiac books, no other than Miss Amy Riley. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Amy, and can you please introduce yourself?
Well, hi, thank you for having me. As you mentioned, I'm Amy Reiley, and I'm considered an authority on aphrodisiac foods, which are foods that are associated with romance and potentially with increasing sexual desire or sexual performance. I've written 5 aphrodisiac cookbooks and a new book that is actually part of a whole system for men to eat for sexual health. It's called the Better Sex Diet for Men. So there's a book in there. So it's like, well, it's kind of my 6th book. The others are straight aphrodisiac cookbooks. And I know you wanted me here today to talk about my 2nd book, Romancing the Stove.
Yes, indeed. So before we go on to your romancing the stove, let's do the recap of what we talked last week. Fork me, spoon me, the sensual cookbook.
Yes, I know an author shouldn't have a favorite, but that book, it was my first book and it's still so special to me. And I really enjoyed talking with you about it.
Yes. So if you summarize all in one word, how would you describe this book?
Sexy.
Ah, sexy, sexy, sexy. According to Crystalline Thomas, uh, love this cookbook. And so does my partner. So far, we have the only tried the recipe for mango meatloaf, and it was absolutely the most succulent and delicious meatloaf we have ever had. Planning to try the recipe for lamb and peach chutney as soon as we can get off our hands in some peaches. Ah, I love it. How do you comment on this, Miss?
Well, I have to tell you that recipe that it's called moist mango meatloaf, and it's also one of my husband's favorites. It's a great recipe. And you wouldn't think meatloaf could be sexy, but boy, you got to try it because you'll be surprised.
Oh, mango meatloaf,
Mhm.
people. I want to try that one. And according to Will, hey, honey, I have an idea. Good recipes and explanation if you want to have some smiles preparing a quiet or two. The teenagers have been around since we have received the book. First chance we get, we have that book open. Ah, interesting comment. So, Miss Amy, let's do talk about your second book, Romancing the Stove. How did you craft it?
Ooh, so Fork Me, Spoon Me, as we talked about, is a book that was just built around the simple idea of 12 aphrodisiac ingredients, why they're aphrodisiac, and how to use them. Romancing the Stove takes a bit of a different approach. In this book, it's built around romantic situations. So each recipe chapter is created around a possible romantic goal you might have. There's a section of recipes for seducing someone, recipes to improve your libido, recipes that just help you unleash your inner romantic, ones that are really good for overall health and are going to make you feel great and feel ready to, jump into bed and perform.
Yes.
There are recipes, I call these the quickies. They're when you just want to have something fast and delicious. They're fast and easy, quick recipes to make, but they all have aphrodisiac ingredients. And then there's nibbles, bites, and afternoon delights. These are like the when you actually get to have a little afternoon delight with someone. This is what to nibble afterward, or perhaps to take on a romantic picnic, that kind of thing.
Yes. And according to Andre J. Britton, I'm digging the mood. With the right food and drink, the mood is already set for romance. So, since the mood is right, the effects are all good. So, Miss Amy, can you share to us example of a good drink to give you a better mood for romance?
Oh, a drink to give you a better mood?
Yes.
So people are surprised. I always recommend coffee, and not just because, it's a wake up sort of beverage, but because coffee's been shown to actually not just get you more awake, but it improves mood. It puts you in a better mood, which is part of the
Yes.
reason we don't realize it, but it's part of the reason we want our morning coffee, is to kind of feel happy as well as awake.
And energize.
Yeah.
Coffee make you energized and alive.
And it's also historically aphrodisiac. So it's kind of got this allure attached to it as well, which we probably don't think about first thing in the morning. But if you
It
bring it
is.
up with someone, oh, coffee's sexy, suddenly they're like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Dark coffee. Okay, according to Miss Elizabeth Adams, happy to give this one a clever book. Happy to give this one. So, this is highly recommended if you have a birthday celebration or Christmas. Well, surprise them with this book, right, Miss Amy?
That's fun. Although I will say you've got to be careful who you give it to, because the book has a very clear message.
Definitely. And according to Salty Buddha, yummy. Uh, Lots of stuff about this book is yummy. So, what are the elements that or recipes that you put in the book that, let's say, the readers will say, yummy, I will do it again?
So, of all my books, this one has probably my best savory recipes. Like my most there are some really incredible recipes for a great lunch or dinner, for a great afternoon snack. Really, things that are not that are both delicious and nutritious at the same time, which is sometimes hard to find. And they have that aphrodisiac element. So I really am very excited about the recipes in this book.
Yes, definitely. So let's take one negative reviews,
Okay.
Miss Amy. Changed me twice. The title. They changed me 2 times for the book. When I called, I was given the runaround multiple times, and they would refund me. The book is not even that good. I want to return, but it says it's not eligible for return. How do you comment on that?
Well, I'm not. So the book wasn't sold through me. So
Yes.
I'm not a book retailer. So I think most of their experience. I'm sorry that their experience was tainted by a book retailer who didn't believe in putting the customer first, and that's really a bummer. And so I can see why their experience with my book would be tainted.
Yes, and Agar, this is so biased because of your situation, you put your anger to the book. It's so unfair for the writers who did the best probably to make people around the world to have this aphrodisiac orgasm or whatever they will experience. But for me as an author, this is so unfair because you put in a comment that make this book down. It and as an author, it's so unfair for your comment. You should think twice or thrice before you click, as they said. I'm just giving my opinion. This unfair comments for Miss Amy.
Well, we can all relate. We've all done it. But yes, I don't think their comment really has anything to do with the book. Their experience with my book would have been much different had they had a good experience with the retailer.
Yes. And we want to apologize for your experience.
Yeah, that's really a shame.
Yes. And according to Miss Agnes, amazing. The details are beautiful. I love the dictionary section. I would love to try rose water champagne. Ah, how
Hmm.
can you say the secret of that rose water champagne,
Okay,
Miss
this
Emmy?
this is the best because it's the easiest cocktail you will ever make. Just buy a nice, reasonably priced and expensive, but not a cheap champagne. An inexpensive bottle of champagne or sparkling wine. I find that a Spanish cava works well for this. And all you have to do is put 1 to 2 drops of a high quality rose water in there. There's a brand that I really love. There's a lovely organic rose water, and just put a drop or two of rose water in a brut style champagne, and you won't believe what it does for the wine and for your sexual appetite.
It will boost you. Oh. So, Miss Amy, next time we're gonna make another book. What do you think? It's another section of your book to make it more vibrant.
So I'm actually working on another book right now. As I mentioned earlier, I created a product called the Better Sex Bundle for Men, and in it there's a book called Fuel Your Fire for Men, which it goes through step by step how a man should eat, how to eat specifically for men's sexual health. The nutrition that women need is a bit different than men, and it goes into all of that with recipes, but it's much more informational, um, advice based. And then it talks about the other building blocks to give men a great sex life. I am now creating the same thing for women. So it will be Fuel Your Fire for women as a part of the Better Sex Bundle for women. And again, it will be using food as a building block for women's sexual health. So it's a very different approach than doing an aphrodisiac cookbook for, these are my current books like Romancing the Stove are really for the gift market. They make fun gifts. They are wonderful for couples to enjoy together. But the new books are very specifically for a person to move toward a specific goal.
Very well said, Miss Amy. But before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening according to my daily ranks on the Apple chart, because in Bhutan I got 25% audience share. Jamaica at 65, Malawi at 25, Cameroon at 25, Cambodia at 25, Zambia at 30, India at 95. Thank you for my daily ranks on the Apple chart. Thank you for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world like Miss Amy Reiley. So, Miss Amy, Romancing the Stove, how many days or month you wrote this book?
Wow. Oh my goodness. I honestly don't remember. It was at the time I wrote this book, I became pregnant, or I think I was pregnant when I started it. I can't remember if I might have started it and then became pregnant, which would be a great testimonial for the book. Unfortunately, as you can see, that was a very hazy point in my memory, because I feel like for women, when you're pregnant, sometimes your brain just turns to mush, and I don't remember
Definitely.
it very well.
It changes. So, according to Rocky, sexy treat and a sleek little book, I knew that there was something sexy about garlic. At the roasting, it just bring out the sweetness. Not to mention the siren's call of aroma to bring in my man. Is there's a recipe for garlic soup? The
Uh,
amor that I can't wait to try. Do you have a recipe for garlic, Miss
I have
Emmy?
yeah. There's a garlic soup recipe in the book, and it's funny. I hadn't thought about that recipe in a while, and it's just like as you read her words, even the flavor of that soup just came back into my mind, and now I have to make it. I'm going to have to make it later today. It's an incredible soup, and it is not only does it support your sex life, but it's good for overall health and immunity. It's a oh, that is a fabulous soup. I can't wait to make it.
What does garlic do to you?
So garlic, and people always say to me, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You can't have garlic on date night or a romantic dinner." But of course you can. It's just that both people have to eat the garlic, right? Because people are worried about, oh, my breath will smell. Well, if both of you have eaten it, you'll have the same breath. You won't notice it, and it's all okay. But there have been some studies. So historically, garlic was considered an aphrodisiac, which I also found very curious when I started researching the topic. And I thought, why in the world were cultures like in ancient Rome, why were they touting garlic as this virility food? And so I started to do the research, and the scientific research really supports that garlic is great for your sexual health. So never say
Yeah.
no to garlic.
Never say no, people, even ginger.
Mhm.
According to Paul Hartley, stimulating. Amy is such a good erotic writer. Much enjoy at our kitchen table. Uh, what what a word, Miss Amy. So we need more aphrodisiac cookbook, okay?
No, okay.
Can you share a memorable moment when you're writing Romancing the Stove?
Wow. It's really, honestly, it was so hard for me to think back to that time. I didn't realize how hazy my memory was around it. It's really funny. Um, I mean, I can remember the thing that I remember most about the book was very purposely creating the recipe sections and the intentions of the book. One of the things that I strove to do with this book was to create recipes that had multiple temperatures and textures. In other words, there might be a hot element and a room temperature element, or even better, a hot element and a cold element in the same dish, or different textures, something slippery and something crunchy all together. And my theory on that, and I still very firmly believe it's true, although that was the point, writing Romancing the Stove was the point that I started experimenting with this. I believe that having a recipe with a greater number of sensory elements not only enhances the sensuality of the dish, but it brings the diner into the moment. You become much more present when you're eating a food that has, these exciting sensory elements. And you're much more present. You're much more there with your partner. You're there sharing this experience with the person across the table, which you can feed someone aphrodisiacs all day long, but if they're not paying attention to how their body feels and they're not paying attention to you, number one, you're going to feel, left out. You're going to feel ignored, and you're not going to potentially not want to engage in romantic acts with them. And also, if they're not paying attention to their body, they don't realize that they may be feeling those romantic urges. So to me, a huge part of an aphrodisiac meal is that sensory pleasure.
Yes. So, Miss Amy, how do you think Romancing the Stove stands out in its genre or category?
So my category is sadly small. There are not a great number of aphrodisiac cookbooks out there. But where I know this book stands out is the incredible recipes, the innovative and interesting and challenging, and not necessarily challenging in the kitchen, like not challenging in terms of culinary technique, but challenging in terms of they're complex and the flavors are so interesting that they kind of challenge your mind. That's where this book stands out.
Definitely. What kind of readers do you believe will connect most with the Romancing the Stove?
For this book, it really requires a believer. You've got to buy into the idea that I want romance, that I'm going to have romance, that my partner and I are going to enjoy this book. But once you buy into that, I think anyone can appreciate it. And certainly anyone can appreciate the recipes, even if they're not willing to buy into the idea that they're eating aphrodisiacs.
Yes, certainly. So, Miss Amy, how has your perspective as an author evolved since the publication of Romancing the Stove?
Oh, Wow. It's definitely evolved. I I've really become much more interested in and concentrating on the elements of foods that can really enhance your sex life, your experience with your partner, the relationship with your partner, how you feel in general, your energy and all of those things. I've shifted much more from focusing on the history, which I do still love, to much more of how food affects your body.
Yes. So, romancing the stove, how do you see this book fitting into a broader literary landscape or cultural conventions?
I mean, everyone wants romance. So I do feel like if you have to be willing to cook, but if you're willing to cook, this is a book for everyone, right? Because I know there's some of us who are like, I don't want to own a cookbook, which is fine. That is fine. But if you'd like to own a cookbook, this book will enhance your romantic life, no matter what.
Yes, it will enhance and boost your power, people. Aphrodisiac cookbooks. But before we go, Miss Amy, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our fourth season, with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chef in one of the five-star restaurant in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We talk about our Food 101 Volume 12 Italian cuisine. And we talk about lasagna, people. Lasagna, one of the trademark of Italian cuisine. Plus one more, our books are out, not only one, but 13 volumes. Food 101, Volume 1, Basics until 13 is only the books that you need. How to create a delicious food. Available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. So, Miss Amy, what next for you as an author?
Oh, so I mentioned I'm very excited that I'm working on a book called Fuel Your Fire for Women, all about how women can eat for their sexual health. And it's going to be really wonderful. We don't talk as much. We don't acknowledge that women may have issues with sexual health, and this book is there to help. So I'm really excited about it. I can't wait till it comes out.
Yes, what the title of the book, Miss?
Fuel Your Fire for Women, and it's going to be sold as a part of a bigger product called the Better Sex Bundle for women.
Oh, sex bundle for women. So this will be empower women all over the world.
Yes.
Okay, so I read this book by Kara Cooney, When Women Ruled the World, Six
Mhm.
Queens of Egypt. And in the Egyptian time, woman reigned supreme. In the 21st century, by through this book, how would woman reign supreme?
Well, this book will help women take control of their sex lives, take control of how they feel and how they perform. It's a book to give women that sort of that power back, and at every stage of life, because your experiences as a woman are different at different stages of life. Something we don't talk about very much. You can learn, how you are normal, how you are supported by other women, how we all have these experiences, and how we can all do better.
Very well said, Miss Amy. And can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. So my books are sold internationally, through the Independent Publishers Group. That is my distributor. I know you can find them on Amazon in most countries. If you want to get more information about me and my books, please go to eatsomething.sexy.com. You can sign up for my mailing list there, and you'll get more information every week on all the exciting things that I have going on, as well as tips on eating for sexual health and boosting romance.
Yes, indeed. Let's support Miss Amy Reiley because if you support her, more Aphrodisiac books to come. Can I use the cover of your book, Miss Amy, for our episode?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love that.
Yes, and catch you next week. Let's talk about eating cake naked, aphrodisiac. I
Sounds
love
good.
baking. I love baking than cooking.
I do too. I feel exactly the same way. We're going to have fun.
Catch you next week.